Grace Monaco and Aiponokamoku Valente.
Yeah, aloha everyone. We're so proud to be able to hold this panel. We'll be having Tristan, David, Chef Mark, Noguchi, and Phil Acosta here today, and we'll be asking questions. And hopefully, we'll be able to learn some amazing information. Um, so, our first question to the panelists: in what way has the pandemic provided opportunities to show up for food system and community resilience? And we can do this like a popcorn, so if you ever feel ready to go.
The things our kids do that if you would have told us they were children.
Yeah, it's crazy. Phil! What's up, Phil?
My dad would build the remote control.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah. I can hear you now. Okay, we good.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah. That we could like control.
I like the shirt.
Throw it on the water.
Yeah.
We could take it to the lake and
Yeah.
have the trees.
Did you get this color?
No, I did not. I have a brown
Okay.
So just a brief introduction to each of our panelists. So you guys, if you were here earlier, you met Tristan David. He's a student who's really interested in sustainability and food systems and kind of hands-on learning in terms of gardening and that kind of thing. And then we have Phil Acosta, who is the executive director of Aloha Harvest, and he's going to kind of shed light on how COVID has affected our food system here, and we're really excited to have him here today. And then we have Chef Mark Noguchi, or Chef Gooch, and he is gonna talk to us about how the pandemic has affected his
Temporarily disconnected.
and sorry, and yeah, we're just excited to have everybody here today. And we'll get started with our first question. I think Aipono asked it earlier, but I'll repeat it. I guess, Phil, if you want to answer this first, in what ways has the pandemic provided opportunities to show up for food systems and community resilience?
Sure. I'll jump in and offer a few comments there. Am I coming in okay? Too echoey?
Yeah. Perfect.
No, good. Okay. Just so from our perspective, for folks that may not be familiar with who Aloha Harvest is, the primary goal of our mission is to rescue quality food and redistribute that out to the community. So generally, we work with restaurants, hotels, grocery stores, distributors. And so some of the things that we saw early on in the pandemic was just how fragile our food system is. So within like the first 3 to 4 weeks of the pandemic, when the closures and those kinds of things were being implemented, there was a kind of a lot of panic. So one of the things that we saw is there was a huge influx of food, mostly coming from restaurants and hotels that had stuff in the refrigerators or things that were on their way being shipped here. So there was a ton, I mean, literally several tons of food that was sitting that had nowhere to go because tourism closed, businesses closed their doors, and there was just a lot of food. And so after that initial 3-4 weeks, then there was kind of a drought. And then the concern became, how is that going to affect the food supply? Most of you folks may be aware that we import over 85% of the food that we consume here on island. That's definitely not a resilient food system. There's a lot of, we rely on things coming in from outside. And so when things happen, like the pandemic or a natural disaster happens, all that stuff gets, messed up. And, the food cycle, the food system becomes very, very fragile. And so those are just a few initial things that we saw. And we were fortunate enough to partner up with Gooch and his gang over there at Pili Group and Chef Hui what they jumped in. And, I think this would be a good insight from Gucci's perspective on the restaurants and, from the food producers, how the pandemic kind of turned things upside down. And sorry, awkward transition there. But then, sorry, Gucci, go ahead.
Oh, okay, me. Yeah, my turn. First off, I wanted to say, mahalo, Phil. It's been a long time. We haven't seen each other. And so for everybody attending, I do believe that a huge part of the success for all these organizations and even all of you as students and as institutions of education. I know the word pivot is much overused, but really that's what we all had to do. And it was very fortunate that on our end, our three family, businesses under my umbrella, Chef Hawai'i and Pili Group. Chef Hawai'i is the youngest. And what happened was when they announced that we wouldn't be coming out of spring break, organizations like Aloha Harvest immediately started to think about, well, how are people going to eat? In public schools, 1 in 5 students rely on that school lunch as their primary meal for the day. And if you think about that, all of a sudden, right, how are almost 25% of our public school children going to eat? And then Amanda, my wife, already had a relationship with Aloha Harvest. So we quickly, the synergy just happened. We onboarded with Pacific Gateway. Pacific Gateway already has a relationship with Aloha Harvest. So, again, you see this thread, right, is that one thing that we often talk about with our employees and with my cooks is not burning bridges. We live on an island with finite resources. We need to rely on each other, and we never know when we're gonna. When we never know when we might need to rely on each other. Kumu Debbie and I go back, probably about 13, 14 years now, and I was just texting her before we got started how grateful I was that we've stayed in touch all these years. So for restaurants too, is that what we realized very quickly was, like Phil said, there were going to be dozens upon dozens of restaurants in Hawaii that had perishable product. All this product was going to go in, I feel like 38 hours probably, right? On the far end, meats, fish, veggies. So strength in numbers is that, we had the ability to together, Aloha Harvest and Chef Hawai'i, to aggregate food because we have this network of chefs that trusted us, and we just started getting phone calls. Hey, we're gonna clean out, Nobus. We're gonna clean out our entire inventory. Merriman's, we're gonna clean out our entire inventory. Do you need it? Do you want it? If Chef Hawai'i, or if like me, if I decided that I was gonna form my own kitchen and cook and serve, there is no way we would have moved a fraction of that amount. Yet we had between Phil and Amanda and myself and our network, we were able to immediately reach out to these community groups that were already feeding their community. So gang, if you think about it, everybody has a reason. There is a reason why we're all doing the work we do. Large companies like Hawaii Food Bank, they have relationships to be able to feed the masses or put together boxes for those big Aloha, Aloha stadium drives and what have you. That's good. Where I found our strength as Aloha Harvest and Chef Hawai'i coming together was we had these relationships with the rural communities, with the housing projects, with all these communities that were getting missed on the big stuff. So, we kind of looked at ourselves as sort of like being able to, almost like shock troopers, right? You go where it needs to be served, and you come back. You drop off. You don't roll into communities and tell them, "Oh, we're here to help," because that's whole kano, that's stuck up. We're like, "Hey, we'd love to be of service to you. What do you need?" And that, to me, was a really big point of pride, because soon after, other restaurants and chefs were like, "Hey, we would love to be of service too. We would love to activate. How can we activate?" So all of a sudden we're talking, and Phil would text us, "Hey, do you have space for do you need 2 volunteers? Yeah, shoots, we'll take them." And then back and forth, with Aloha Harvest on, they need like 6 guys to go out to whole farms to help. Bang, bang, bang. We could move really quickly. And I think that is, that really was a positive point during COVID. I've certainly, cultivated a few lifetime friendships out of COVID because of that sort of immediate sense of response.
Thank you so much. Sorry, next question. Where have you seen progress towards a better food system? And also to counter, where have you seen us move backwards? And Tristan, would you like to start off? So, where's the next question?
Yeah, where I've seen progress towards it. Well, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff going on, like sorry. Well, there's been a lot of push towards being more sustainable, and at my college, there's been a lot more sustainable classes as time has gone on, and yeah, there's been a big push towards having more local food because people are realizing more and more, especially with COVID, that there's really not enough food grown on the island, and they want local food. If they're at home, they want things that are around, and they can see, they're online more often, and they can see people talking about that and doing things. So there's been progress with awareness, I think, a lot. And yeah, a lot of people have been unemployment, so they've had more free time and more time to, well, there's been COVID, of course, but there's been, they have time to garden and do things like that for some people. Yeah.
Thank you. Any of the other panel members would like to say something?
Sure, yes, I wanted to jump in and kind of build on some of the things that Tristan brought up about awareness and sustainability. I think, when we talk about a sustainable food system, definitely what we are now aware of is that what we had before, we cannot keep doing that. We need to grow more local foods to bring that 85% down to something more manageable. Folks like Gooch and his friends and his former friends, that's one of the things that I think we saw and provided an opportunity, kind of going back to the previous question, and things that are kind of moving towards progress now, is that we can grow more food, and then people will eat a local food, and we can make it sustainable. But we just need to do things differently. And I think with the pandemic, that forced us to do that. Also, the relationships in the community, where folks are partnering together in non-traditional ways. Even for us as Aloha Harvest, there were a lot of things that we did not do in the previous 21 years that we existed. But we had to do that with the pandemic, but we couldn't do it ourselves. And so we reached out to folks like Gooch and his group, other organizations, other businesses, so that we could grow our capacity. So I see a lot of progress in building a better food system, but unfortunately, what I fear is going to happen is it's temporary. It happened because there was an incident. There was the pandemic that happened. And so we reacted, we pivoted, we did some things. And now that things are opening up, maybe we'll revert back to that. So that's what I fear, could move us back again. So maybe next time it's not a pandemic, maybe it's a hurricane or a tsunami or a strike at the docks. And then we're back to the same again, and then we're scrambling to do things like we did last year about this time, scrambling, trying to feed people. So I'm hoping that is not something that we revert back to. And then last point that I kind of wanted to make, and then I'll give other folks a chance to kind of chime in, but you know, with the pandemic or anything else, you know, food resiliency and you know, food insecurity and those kinds of things, it does affect us all differently. Maybe you folks can speak for yourselves, but for me, for all of last year, I did not go hungry. I wasn't relying. I had a lot of food to eat. Part of that is, you know, Gucci and his friends were cooking up some stuff in the kitchen, but our access to healthy foods varies, right? One family, if there's a disruption, they're affected greatly, and they see themselves at a food bank or a food line, or maybe cutting out some things, you know, just so that they can afford good food. And so those are some things that I hope that people are more aware of now, is that really it doesn't affect everybody equally. It affects the folks that are struggling now more so. And I hope that we can make we can make more folks aware of that, and, you know, really work towards making it more equitable.
Thank you.
I have nothing to
I
add. I have nothing to add, but to just agree with both Tristan and Phil. So,
Perfect.
Say a little bit
I
more.
completely agree as well. I think there were flaws in the system highlighted during the pandemic that I think we need to address and continue to try to address in the future. For Chef Gooch, I know you kind of already touched on this, but what do you think the role of chefs in restaurants has been in the pandemic, and how has that changed like over the course of this?
thanks, Grace. I believe for a lot of restaurants, we'll back it up. First off, the majority of chefs, we do what we do because we love to be of service. So when the pandemic happened, the majority of chefs across the world wanted to activate and somehow be of service, feed people, take care of those that couldn't have food. Yet at the same time, everyone's running a business. So it was this balance of many chefs trying to save their restaurants, save their employees, and not the stories that I heard, they weren't trying to save their businesses for themselves. They knew that they had people that relied on them for a living. So you're stressed out to the max, doing everything you can so that you don't have to look your employees in the eye and be like, I'm sorry, I don't know where you're going to get paid next week. Yet through all of that, the majority of chefs, you know, within our circle stepped up and somehow made it work. Somehow still continue to cook, you know, through food drive programs, and figure out a way how to, you know, keep as many employees as they could, you know, on payroll. Where I see us evolving out of is that I still see a strong desire for our chefs to be of service. I do agree with Phil. A big worry of mine is that the majority of us as Hawaii are going to go back to status quo. You know, big box. You know, food is unlimited. I don't quite see that with chefs. I think because those of us in the restaurant and service industry, it's still very real. You know, people are still onboarding slowly. That raise that you thought you were going to get may or may not happen. However, chefs still want to be of service. They still want to figure out how. And I think that for us as Chef Hui, even though we are no longer involved in weekly food distribution at the scale that we used to, helping chefs to provide a venue for service, whether it is a work day or whether it is a community feeding. That is still on the radar of of most of my colleagues. So that hasn't changed. So it is hopeful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Uncle Mark. Just like Uncle said, it's about finding the balance. Even as students too, we have to balance our schoolwork and our homework and working around in the house. And I think for every business, COVID has taught us how to really balance and give back to the community as well as make a living. Also, if any audience members have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. But for Uncle Phil, what has been the role of the food source and emergency food systems during this pandemic? And how has that played in not only your community, but other communities around the state of Hawaii?
I think that's really important. Thank you for the question. That's really good. Hey, Gucci, you have one of those meat sticks handy? Yeah, you get. No. No, he was invasive deer, yeah, is what he was making, meat sticks. That
exactly.
could just as well have been chicken that you buy from Safeway, or could have been beef, or kind of ribeye you get from Costco or Times or whatever. But I think one of the things, not quite food rescue, but like with Gooch said, eat the invasives, yeah. So it's just a matter of being creative and thinking out of the box. And I think that's one of the things that most people don't think about food rescue is, we do actually have a lot of food. And when we go to the store and we prepare food and we eat food, globally, what most people don't realize is 40% of the food that comes out of the ground never makes it to your table. There's so much waste between the production and the transportation and all those things, that 40%. So imagine if like your plate of food, you just scraped off about half of that and throw it in the trash. That's kind of sort of what it's like. And so, during the pandemic, what we were kind of concerned was after those initial 3-4 weeks of this huge influx from hotels and restaurants, that we would run out of food to give. But funny thing happened is we doubled the volume of food that we ended up rescuing from the year prior. So it's kind of amazing that in the midst of all this chaos in the pandemic, when we thought, oh, there's not going to be enough food, there was plenty. It was just a matter of making people aware and finding a way to get it from this point where the source is to this point where the need is. And so that's where the network of chefs, network of volunteers. We had some folks that were school age that were not going to school. They were in the kitchen. They were out there on the food lines. They were actively participating. And so, as far as food rescue goes, there's the potential for it is so tremendous. We just need to get more people involved. We're in all of the food land, but we're not in all of the time. We collect from this restaurant, but not the one right next door. You know what I mean? And so if folks are aware that if we kind of change our mindset and change our relationship with food in general, that everything that we grow, everything that we cook, everything that we prepare should have a use. It should either be eaten, or if it's not good for human consumption, then maybe for animal feed. Or if it's not good for animal feed, then maybe it should go to composting. So that everything you grow, everything that comes out of the ground, everything that comes out of the store has a use. And food rescue should be a big part of that. But there's other aspects of it so that nothing that we create goes to waste. And so that's a huge thing that we saw during the pandemic is there's actually a huge potential for more food rescue. And in this year, in 2021, in the first 3 months, we actually surpassed our pace from last year by 50%. And so I think we've done a pretty good job in making people aware. And I'm hoping, opportunities like this and a panel like this, talking to younger folks, you folks can be that voice to help spread the word that, there are people, the effects of the pandemic still here. We can do more and we should do more.
Thank you. So I know we talked about earlier how we don't really want to return to the status quo. So Tristan, how might we set up a system that works better for future disasters or crises?
Well, I think the government should probably, I think there should be more opportunities for each individual person to be able to support themselves and grow their own food or support their community directly, and awareness of that and have places that they can go for that. So like set up more community gardens, set up better infrastructure so that can help bring a community together in times of crisis. So, like make sure that there's like events, have things that like farms that they can go to and talk, and be able to like educate people about like future, about like disaster and preparedness, and but like have things that they can do about it. Like, don't make people like trying to not just make people that feel just like disempowered and just like, oh, there's a coronavirus and everything's just awful, and I guess I'll just sit home, watch TV all day because I don't want to go outside and get sick.
Tristan, that's a
Chef
really
Gooch.
great point about I'll pass it on to Gooch real quick. I just wanted to say that's a really good point about the government getting involved in something. I'll get on a soapbox and I'll step off real quick, but can you imagine if we spent $10 billion towards the food system and towards homelessness and towards those things instead of some other projects that are gone unused? Can you imagine how much more, how many more issues we could solve in the community? Hunger probably wipe that out. You talk about resilient food system, but it's not a matter of not having enough money to support it. Obviously, we've got billions of dollars to go towards certain projects, just not all projects. Yeah, and so really good point about the government really jumping on board and doing something significant to empower people to help themselves or to make a more resilient food system. So I'll get off my soapbox. I'll hand it off to Gooch.
What's up, Grace?
Yeah, I just wanted to hear you kind of voice your opinion on how we might set up a system that works better for future disasters or future pandemics or whatever it may be.
It would be nice if the lessons that we learned in 2020, that we don't forget them. Going back to what Phil was saying earlier about going back to status quo. Because really, and not to sound like Mr. Doomsday, but it's not if, it's when. It will happen again. Right? It happened historically, it'll happen again. That I think is my biggest. That's what for us as Chef Hui, for the work that I do at Punoho, it is remembering, taking notes, recording our systems, remembering that when it's time to activate again, we don't have to scramble and try and figure it out. I think that's the most direct answer that I can give without sounding utopian or what have you. Right? It's just don't forget. Excuse my French. Don't forget the ass kicking that we got.
Yeah, thank you. And like what Uncle Phil said earlier, it's about being creative, especially in these times. Finding not so much new food sources, but food sources that we don't really tap into and we don't really think about, building connections with local hunters, fishermen, even in our own community. It's all important. And through COVID, although it has taught us a lot of lessons, and there was lots of downsides. I would like for you guys to think of one of your favorite memories that happened during COVID, probably like those little silver linings, maybe a new recipe that came up or something you started to take on that it's because of COVID you were given a new opportunity to try something new.
I got one. Best part about it was how tight our family has gotten. Never mind. I mean, there's a ton of cool experiences and stories. But if I were to put a pin, one thing that I'm most grateful for is the strength that it has given us as a family. That's
Tristan, Uncle Phil?
I'll chime in a little bit. I actually got one of the cooler things is, we got to be really creative. I don't know if you can relate to that, but if you're given the opportunity to just do what you think will work and then kind of experiment and then actually see it succeed, that's so rewarding to do that. So like a lot of the stuff that we did, I mean, we failed at some things, but then there were a lot of things that we did, folks that we work with, partnerships that we built that really just work well. And so it's nice to see that. And it was great to be able to kind of be creative, step out of our comfort zone and then be out there and provide immediate relief, but hoping, things that we can continue well into the future, not just in the last year, and I like that, there are folks that that we weren't aware of that were doing things in the community. That was really cool to get to meet and work with a lot of folks. And that goes back to, I think, one of your previous questions about building community resilience is there's people that can do the work and are doing the work. And I think we just need to support that more because we have the resources, natural resources, we have the human resources, people that want to do good. I think in Hawaii, more so that Aloha spirit was really alive in the last year where people would step up or the contributions that they make or the things that they did that was different was really phenomenal. And so it was really rewarding to be part of all that.
Tristan, what has been the highlight of the past year for you?
That's kind of tough. I did have like a winter vacation type thing where I went to the mainland with a friend. That was a lot of fun, I guess, but that's not really related to agriculture stuff. But I don't know, it's been a lot of fun to grow my garden on my balcony and grow plants and start to do that and start to support some of my own needs at home, food. So it's been a cool thing. And of course, doing this is it's a highlight.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I've been looking for internships to hopefully have bigger experiences since COVID, and doing something in the summer and be able to make an impact right now.
Okay. So here's a kind of a tough question. Is there anything that fell on your shoulders over the past year that you felt should have been on another person's shoulders or another section, or someone else should have responded rather than you?
I'll make an attempt to answer that. So things that maybe fell on our shoulders, not so much that it fell on us. I think for what we kind of saw early is, we had the capacity, so we took it on. So we put it on our shoulders and we did it. And so, normally folks like the food bank or food pantries are primarily the folks that are feeding in the community. That's not something that we normally do, but with some, changing some things around, shifting resources, we felt that we could do it, and we actually wanted to do it. Where we felt maybe some things that other folks could come in and do a better job at supporting it is, maybe, I think the ongoing government support, not just in the short term, because the need is there, and the need is probably going to be there for quite some time. But when that initial support from the government goes away, then that burden then comes on us, and now we have to continue that. And to tell you the truth, feeding people is not cheap. Feeding people is a very, very expensive business to go into. And that's definitely one of the things that we learned during the pandemic, is it takes a lot of resources to do it. Thankfully, we had, CARES Act funding, those kinds of things, but more so there were other people that stepped up, whether they're private companies, individual donors, or foundations that stepped up and, helped us do our work. So what I'm hoping and what I fear may happen after some time is that now, the powers may be will say, oh, you guys did such a good job, you guys can do that. You can go raise your own money, you can run that. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope those are not some things that will fall on our shoulders and say, oh, now this is your responsibility and you gotta go do it yourself. I'd hate for that to happen, because that'll affect a lot of people that are, relying on assistance. And, this, like I said earlier, it's not a matter of not having enough money. It's just, where you want to invest your money in. That's a good question for government leaders is, let's put it to something that's more useful, that'll help more people.
Well, I think that's something that might have fallen on my shoulders as a student, and I guess a lot of other students, is having to do online school all the time and not being able to be on campus and like take classes and do service learning and do all the things that a college experience should really have. Like pretty much the only in-person events were like board of student activity things, which were just like field days, and those have only been like the last couple months. Like I feel like that should fall on the shoulders of the like administration to find more ways to get students having that college experience and being on campus and really interacting with each other, because most college classes don't do that, and doing like actual service learning. Like it's not really fair that like, I don't know, so many other things have been continuing fine. Like you'd go to the movies, but we can't take a class. Go to a bar, but can't go to like a conference or to a lecture or do like activity, like even in botany lab that I had, where most of the planning was going on hikes and taking surveys. I couldn't do that. It had to be online. You take virtual tours. So I feel like administration at colleges should be working harder to get students back in school, back with that experience. And it's been frustrating for having to just stay at home, basically.
Grace, Aipono, can I throw out a question for you folks? Is that okay?
Sure.
Kind of related to what Tristan is saying and to your question as far as things that are kind of falling on your shoulders. You know, doing a lot of the remote online learning and all that stuff, you know, do you think there could have been more done, and then maybe other folks in the community or in the school or in government that could have advocated for you folks to return to school sooner, or, you know, be more creative about how you can create a safer environment? Or do you think they did the right things, or, you know, not to be too controversial, but I get the frustration where, you know, I'm a parent of two college students as well, and when the pandemic hit, my senior in high school, she missed out on the second, you know, the last quarter and graduation and prom, and then missed out on the first year of her freshman year in college. And so I feel the frustration there. Do you think, you know, from a youth's perspective, there could have been more that should have been done by your administrators or by your government leaders, as opposed to prioritizing other things?
Yeah, I love this question. I'm not sure I'm best equipped to answer it. I was really lucky to be able to return back to school in September. And so it's, from my perspective, it's been really nice. And I think I want everybody, all the youth, to be able to have this experience, because I know a lot of people struggle a lot with distance learning, and like more people are hands-on, or they like to be in the classroom more. So I know that it's been really hard, and I do wish that everybody had the same opportunity. I think it should have been, or we should have more advocates to make it safer for people, everybody to return back to school. I know Aipono has a different perspective. I would love to hear what he has to think.
Yeah, I'm one who's still all online learning, and I'm going in my senior year and preparing for colleges. There's just a lot of things to do, safety wise, as well as just getting administrated and navigating through this technological world we live in. With all the not being able to go to school, I think it gave the youth lots of an opportunity to pursue what they enjoy, kind of. Lots of, because we're all learning online, it gives us a lot of free time at our own homes, pursuing, if we love home gardening or fishing or hunting or even crafts, art. It's given us a lot of time to reflect on ourselves, what we need to get better at. And it also taught us how hard it is, or it reminded us that we need to be able to adapt, and nothing in the future is guaranteed. So being able to adapt to what we're given and making the best out of the time we have is, I think, an important lesson COVID has taught us. And although I would love to, I have one class on Friday where we get to go back to school, and they distance us, and it's fun being back and seeing the teachers and working on some outdoor projects. And even the curriculum, I noticed, is different in COVID. And I think it's giving us an opportunity to switch the priorities of students. More students are being aware that farming and food sustainability is important, especially during this time. So I feel that more and more youths are going to want to be involved in this field of work, and it helped give us, it helped us realize what's important, being with family and farming and having a meal on the table and supporting local businesses. So yeah.
Okay, I have another question for all of the youth on the call, but I guess Tristan and Aipono can kind of shed light on this. What do you guys want to see from organizations like Aloha Harvest and Chef Hui to inspire youth to get interested in food sustainability?
I guess I'd like to see like maybe internship opportunities be like more internship opportunities with like that are tied to like, courses or like at colleges, like me trying to coordinate something so the internships can get some sort of credit with the universities, or having some sort of like education award or like a paid internship, you know, where we can learn and have incentive to go and do things and be out in the world and volunteer.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not even like if it's just a mentorship too as well, you know, having that connection with these amazing businesses gives the youth almost a foot in the door in the next steps. So
Yeah, if Chef Gooch or Uncle Phil wants to kind of respond to that, what you guys are currently doing or what you guys hope to do in the future to get youth involved.
You know, for us, and you know, every school has a term that they call it, right? In Punoho, we call it experiential learning, where now with things like capstones, self-directed projects, a lot of high schoolers can, in essence, write their own final. I apologize. Just to let you know, I am also now on lifeguard duty. So please excuse the commotion. But I believe that what I see is, I think every school out there wants to afford students the ability to self-direct their own projects. Where the gray line is though is and this is a part of, for students that you might not know, this is the part of building bridges, is that there's the L word, liability. Who is going to take ownership of, God forbid, something happens? I think that the way that nonprofits and schools can work together more is through a more open dialogue. Okay, we want to provide this opportunity. There's no school that's going to be like, oh yeah, no. We don't want to support our students in projects that they want to accomplish. That's not it at all. The real life, you know, the real life situation though is that we need to kind of go through, you know, cross our T's and dot our I's to make that happen. I think that the more that students demand, you know, and go to their teachers, go to their principals and be like, we really would love opportunities with Aloha Harvest. We would really love opportunities with key projects. Can you help us make it worth credit? Once again, going back to strength in numbers. The more that schools are hearing that across the board from parents, from nonprofit organizations, from students, the more compelled they are to take action. So, you know, that's what I would say. As students, for all of you that are here, for educators that want to see this happen, you know, across the board, the more that we talk, the more that we say we want to see. Nobody wants to diminish the opportunities for our leaders. That's not
I'll jump in a little bit. I put my contact information on the chat, so you can email or call our office directly if you want to. I am, in a previous life, I was an educator. I was in a classroom. I was in the DOE system, Department of Education, for 10 years. And so I have, you know, I have that draw towards working with young people, working with students, and, you know, try and create a mentorship or internship opportunities. So yeah, I mean, hit us up, let us know that, you know, part of what's been kind of limiting us in the last year is, of course, all the safety protocols, making sure, you know, the physical distancing, the sanitation, PPEs, those kinds of things. Even, you know, a lot of the larger group opportunities were not allowed, and only now we're starting to open up. I think what's like currently 10 in a group, so you can make like pods of 10. But definitely one of the things that we want to build, you know, for us at Aloha Harvest is I want to encourage more young people to get involved. Would love to also see the young people and their parents, you know, come along for the ride, for the experience, because, you know, you spend that hour, 2, 3 with us doing whatever it might be, whether you're in the kitchen, you're out on the community, but when you go home, you need that reinforcement from your other environments that, you know, and so I think good to have that family experience, whether it's a parent and a child, or, you know, or a group of you within your school. You folks can take that back, take the experiences back with you, and then, you know, grow from it. But definitely we encourage that. We would encourage that from folks to reach out. And I think you'll see that from most nonprofit organizations is they love to see the community get involved. More so, they love to see youth get involved, because I'm an old man and I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, and I can't. And I'd love for folks to, you know, eventually in the future, folks to take up the interest, and then you know, work more towards, you know, the things that we're doing now, build on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as we come closer to our ending time, I want everyone to, you 3 panelists, to share maybe one last final thought, maybe a words of advice, or what you guys want to say to the audience members here.
Go, Tristan. Take us home.
Right, well, I don't know, there's the final thought is really not quite final, I guess, but I said just like say like I'd see that, well, pretty much everyone here seems to be pretty motivated to do good and to learn to grow food, and I'd say try not to pass up any opportunities that come your way, and because it's a lot of work to make opportunities and a lot of work to find them sometimes. So if you ever see something that seems awesome, give it a shot, because the more things you do, the more things you'd have in your resume, the more experiences you'd share with friends and at things like with your peers and things like this, I guess. And, you know, just the richer life you'll have. Yeah. Try growing your own food too, because growing food's fun. Yeah. Secondary.
I'll chime in real quick. You know, just some additional thoughts is, you know, I'm very grateful for whenever folks reach out and want us to speak a little bit more about our experience or our organization. I'm even more grateful that, you know, a youth-led event or council is reaching out and being proactive about it. You know, that really excites me, because I know that, you know, there are folks out there that are interested in this work, that it can perpetuate and carry on and build on that. So, you know, just wanted to you know, express my thanks to Grace, Aipono, Liv, and Tristan, and everybody else in Hawaii Food Council. Thank you guys for allowing us this platform to talk a little bit more, not just about our experience, but what we can do together in the community to work towards building a better food system. So thanks for that.
Yeah, true that. You know, it's a Saturday and we all gathered here. So all the students and the educators made it happen. Yeah, right on, Phil. Long time no see, so it's good. Tristan, thank you for your EK too. You know, people, I'm sure, Phil, with you too, people always ask, well, what can I do? You know, how can we do our part? Be nice. You know, that's to me, it's gotta be nice. Think of when is the last time you looked over your fence and said hi to your neighbor, or check the with uncle at the end of the road, see how he was doing. Not one person is gonna move the needle to make a better world, right? It's all of us. Just do a little bit to do that. Be nice.
Yep, be nice. So if any of the audience members have any final questions, if not, thank you so much for sitting on our panel. Thank you for all your insight and aloha.
Well, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yep, and we'll have a short break for 10 minutes. Feel free to walk around, stretch, grab a little snack. And at 2:10, we'll have another youth-led interactive session.